Good afternoon, precious friends. You may have noticed, or you may shortly notice, a difference in the quality of the video. I have new equipment today that we're trying out for the first time, and I want to wish you all, Americans and non-Americans included, happy Independence Day. If your nation doesn't celebrate Independence Day, I hope you're enjoying your independence regardless. I've got my red, white, and blue on, as is traditional. And since the summer is well underway and most parts of the country and many parts of the world are experiencing warmer weather, I thought we'd make something appropriate for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make my favorite recipe for chicken salad. Now, to be fair, gonna have to probably call this ketovore because it does have some flavorings and a little bit of plant matter in it, but it is all about the chicken. So let's get started. Hardware is really very simple this time. We've got a knife for chopping. I'll tell you about this nifty knife in just a second. It's really neat. And a couple of spoons for dishing out and stirring. A good sized bowl. I think this is like 3 quarts for mixing. So when you're mixing, you have enough room to toss the stuff around and don't end up putting it all over the countertop. And I always like to have a second bowl for ready to store, a smaller bowl to store the finished salad in, so we don't have to find a place for this behemoth in the refrigerator. And before we go on to the software, I want to show you, I found this really neat set of knives. They're called Farberware Edge Keeper. And no, Farberware isn't giving me any money. I just want you guys to have access to good tools. If they're inexpensive, and they have a little sharpener right in the blade cover. So every time you remove the knife from the cover, it hones the edge. And every time you put it in, it hones the edge. And this keeps your knife very, very sharp and functional. One of the biggest problems that a lot of people experience with cooking and with expanding their repertoire and expanding their skills is the problem of dull knives. Dull knives make everything harder. They're also more dangerous. It's easier to cut yourself with a dull knife actually than a sharp knife, and that is because when you're using a dull knife, you have to use a greater force to make the knife do what you want it to do. And because of that, if you do manage to get your finger underneath there, you're going to be pushing down harder and the cuts are going to be more serious. If you have a very sharp knife, you use a very light pressure, and therefore if you do get yourself under the edge of the knife, the cut is very likely to be less serious. Okay, so please do yourself the favor of getting and keeping sharp knives. Again, this is Farberware. Let's see. Farberware Edge Keeper. They're inexpensive. The blades always stay sharp. And if you're not a professional chef, you don't need $60 or $70 or $80 or $90 knives. You just really don't. So that's it for hardware. So software. We've got 2 large chicken breasts, and these I just popped in my slow cooker with about a cup of water and set it on low for about 6 hours and just let it alone. And they cooked themselves, and they're nice and tender, and you don't have to cook them that way. You can cook them however you want to, but I'll show you why I choose to cook them that way in just a minute. We got here some flat leaf parsley, which I really, really love. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I've got 3 scallions. I've also got some no sugar added bread and butter or sweet pickle chips. This is Mount Olive brand. It is made admittedly with sucralose. If you don't do sucralose, you can use dill pickles, or you can leave the pickles out. Or if you're okay with a little bit of sugar, then go ahead and use sweet pickles. Just make sure you keep track of how many carbs are going into your salad. But I don't mind a little bit of sucralose. It doesn't tend to bother me. It doesn't tend to trigger me. So I'm going to use these. And I have some homemade mayonnaise. This is just a regular old mayonnaise recipe. You can find them all over the internet, made with a stick blender. And instead of being made with seed oil, this will stay soft in the refrigerator because I made it with, and again, this is something some people don't want to do, but I made it with what's called fractionated coconut oil. It's coconut oil that stays liquid in the refrigerator, okay? This is way more stable and way less inflammatory than seed oil. Some people call it, it's very similar to MCT oil. It's not exactly the same thing, but some people use it in place of MCT oil. Admittedly, it's expensive. This 1 pint container was $10. So, but I make excellent mayonnaise that stays soft in the refrigerator, unlike bacon fat mayonnaise or butter mayonnaise. Although there's a gentleman named Chris Cooking. His channel's name's Chris Cooking. His name's Chris. I can't remember his last name. But he has an excellent recipe for butter mayo that will stay soft in the refrigerator, according to him. I haven't tried it yet. But I'll link his channel, or I'll link the video of the butter mayo that stays soft in the fridge. So you can try that. But I encourage you to get yourself a stick blender or a regular blender and make your own mayonnaise. It is dead simple. I'm serious. A reasonably intelligent monkey could really make mayonnaise, and it is so much better for you and so delicious and so much tastier than buying the stuff at the store. Okay, and last but not least, I have got capers. I just love capers with chicken, and we're going to be using some of the brine in here also for our dressing. Okay, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up our chicken. Now, I left it unchopped because I wanted to show you. I just cut it in big strips against the grain, and then crumble it apart with my fingers because it's so tender from being in the crock pot. Now, you can just poach it on the stove and chop it up however you like, but I like to pull it because I like the texture that it gives the chicken salad. So how do you tell where the grain is going? You just break it apart and look for the lines in the meat. You see they're going this way? So I'm just gonna cut it across that way and across that way. You can see the lines are going this way on this piece. Just gonna do that, and at this point, because it's so tender, all I have to do is pull it, crumble it a little bit with my fingers, and it falls right apart. So that minimizes my knife work, and it's also very, very, very fast. Let me show you again. This is a big piece of chicken breast. I just generally break them in half to make them more manageable. Pull it open a little bit, see? There's the muscle lines. That tells you which direction to cut it in. Cut it across a couple of times. And just pull it or crumble it right into your bowl. I like to do it this way because, number one, it cooks in the crock pot by itself. I just set an alarm on my phone. I put it in. I set an alarm on my phone, put it on low. I put the chicken breasts in from frozen, put about a cup of water in the crock pot. Then I turn the crock pot on low. I set an alarm on my phone for 6 hours. And then when the alarm goes off, I just turn the crock pot off, lift out the chicken breasts, let them cool for about 10 minutes, and then cut them up as you see me doing and crumbling them. It's 5 minutes worth of work for a whole bowl of this lovely shredded chicken meat. And you can do this for anything. You can do this. You can make some homemade low-carb barbecue sauce and make some pulled chicken barbecue. You can make some low-carb bread and make low-carb sandwiches. And plus, you have about a cup or so, sometimes a little bit more, believe it or not, of wonderful chicken broth. I don't put any seasoning in because I want my chicken broth to be plain. That way, if I want to, I can save up the chicken broth and make chicken glace de viande. We made beef glace de viande that last time, but you can do exactly the same procedure to make chicken glace de viande. And that is also very, very delicious and quite umami. So let's go on, okay? So we're gonna turn to our vegetation. I got some washed parsley here. This is flat leaf parsley. I love Italian flat leaf parsley. And I want to show you, I buy it in a bunch from the store and I keep it in a jar with a little water in the bottom. And that keeps it, this was already limp when I got it from the store. So I just want to show you how, I'm going to get a couple more of these out and show you how I separate the parsley. Some people just take the whole head and just rip a handful off and chop that up. And some people just take the whole head and kind of chop bits of the end off and then throw the rest away when they get down to where there's too much stem. Well, I just can't abide, you know, wasting product that way. You do you, but what I just do is I pull out a string. Like I said, this was already limp when I brought it from the store. I just pull out a stalk and I pinch it with my fingers right up to the top and pinch it off with my thumbnail. And then these ones down here, just do the same thing. And once again, get these ones down here, pull them off, pull them off. And then this is the part, I keep these sometimes in the freezer to make broth with because I like, as I've said, I like parsley. But that parsley will keep like that in the refrigerator for a couple of weeks, actually, if you are careful and keep the water fresh and changed. Now, this I'm going to use as kind of a sort of a tutorial on knife work. To chop up parsley from fresh. If you don't want to bother with this, you can leave the parsley out or you can use dried parsley. It'll still be tasty, but I just love fresh parsley, so for me it's worth it. So you get your parsley that's cleaned and picked through and you get it all up in a ball. And you just kind of roll it and mush it up all in a ball so that it'll pretty much stay when you hold it with one hand. Okay? Keep your fingers curled under. See how I got them? Not like this, but like this. And there's, so that part of the bunch is sticking out from the front. Then take your knife and begin by start here and then mash down and move forward as you go. And then move in a little bit, mash down and move forward. Pull it back, mash down and move forward. And this will slice your parsley. And you just keep doing that. Once you get used to this, you can go really fast. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. You can go really fast until you get all the way up to your fingers. And then you can use the edge of the knife to hold the bunch down while you move your fingers back, and then plant the tip of the knife and then down and forward at the same time, down and forward. And once you get good at it, you can do stuff like this. Haha. Of course, I've been doing that for a long time, so don't feel bad if you can't do it right off the bat. So now, this is called chiffonade. The parsley is in long strings. I want it in smaller bits, and I want the parsley flavor to really come out. So how we do that is we gather it all up into a ball again, and we put a couple of shakes of salt on there, and we gather it all up into a ball again, and we just start rocking the knife through it, back and forth. Hold the tip down with your finger and lift the rest of it like a lever, the rest of the knife like a lever. When you get it, when it starts to spread out on you, scrape it back up together and go back and forth there. The reason we put salt on it is because the salt is going to break down the cell walls, and it's going to bleed into the leaves of the parsley through the cut edges, and it's going to, number one, tenderize the leaves, because flat leaf parsley is notoriously tough, and if you get a big piece of it, sometimes it feels like you're chewing on a piece of plastic. I get that, but I just love the flavor of it. And you just keep going back and forth like this until it is as finely diced as you want it. It might take you a little practice to get that fast at it, but it's really worth it if you like parsley. But you can use you can do any herbs like this. And here we are. That's about 3 tablespoons of finely chopped parsley. It started out as like close to a half a cup. And the salt in there is going to really make the flavor of the parsley pop in our dish. Now the next thing, little tutorial we're going to do is we're going to do scallions. Scallions are kind of an obnoxious critter in the kitchen. If you like onions, you might, and you're keto or ketovore, you might want to consider learning how to deal with scallions, because they have a lot of onion flavor with way less carbs than bulb onions do. So first of all, of course, we're going to cut the little hairy heads off, the little hairy ends. Get off. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut the greens off, because we're going to process them separately. I'm going to cut this off. You want to cut it where it starts to split off. Right there. Right there. Okay. And then what you want to try to do is like hold it right here with your fingers and use the tip of the knife to draw down and basically cut the root in half. You can skip this step if you want to, but sometimes that leads to great big giant chunks of onion, which can be unpleasant. So you do what you feel comfortable with, but this is how I like to do it. So once again, put your fingers on either side, rest the tip of your knife. This is why it's important to have a sharp knife. Hold the end down, and then you can move your fingers down as you draw it down, and then just split Doesn't matter if it's split exactly in half. And then you grab it all together just like you did the parsley. And then you use the same motion. Down and forward. You want to press down and slide forward at the same time. And once you get good at it, like I said, once again, you can do stuff like this. And in the bowl it goes. You can put a little salt on these too if you want to, but I don't generally. I don't find it's necessary. Now we're gonna do the top parts. You don't have to split the top parts because the top parts are way more tender. So we're just gonna So I highly encourage you. A lot of people who come into paleo or keto or ketovore, they find that they don't have the kitchen skills that makes cooking easier. And it does take practice. So I highly encourage you to practice this. So now we're going to do our pickles. You can do as little or as a lot of these as you want to. You can use dill instead of sweet if you don't like the sucralose. But I really like these pickles. And like I said, the amount of sucralose that you get per serving isn't really that significant in the long run. And like I've said, sucralose doesn't tend to bother me. So right here, I'm just going to take a little stack and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and just cut them into chunks. 1, 2, turn it, 3, 4. Or alternatively, if you want to, you can just do it the simple way. It's less accurate and you'll have lots of different size chunks, but if that's okay, you can just take your knife and do like you did with the parsley. And then run back and forth through it. Okay? That makes it easier if you're just starting out. There we go. There is our pickles. Now that's all of our vegetation. Oh, no, excuse me. That's not all of our vegetation. Oop, my fingers are slippery. I can't get the lid off. Now capers come in a skinny, skinny jar. So you can't get a spoon in there. So what I do is I get a spoon. Either the back of the spoon will curve up or the front of the spoon handle will curve up. Whichever works for you. And I'm going to get about 2 tablespoons out of here. There. And now these little suckers are like BBs and they will roll around all over the place when you try to chop them up. So what I do is I just put the knife blade down on them and mash, and that flattens them out so they don't roll around. Now you can leave them whole and just put them in there. Some people like biting into a whole caper. I don't particularly. I find them a little too strong. So I'm just going to do like we did with the parsley and run the knife through them. Once they start to spread out, scooch them back together again. And then go the opposite way. There you go. That's all you need to do. Like, okay, now we're done with our vegetation. At this point, we're going to get our big old mixing spoon. That's already looking delicious. And we are going to add to here, as the basis for our dressing, or as a seasoning for our dressing, about a tablespoon of caper juice. You won't need all the caper juice anyway that you had before because you took a bunch of them out. And we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of the pickle juice. And we're going to add salt to taste. I'm just eyeballing it because I already know how much salt I like. And then got some freshly ground black pepper. I always use freshly ground black pepper. I never use pre-ground black pepper because I just really don't like it. If you like pre-ground black pepper, you're absolutely welcome to use whatever kind of pepper you like. And here we go, our lovely, delicious homemade mayonnaise. And I'm going to put a good amount of in here. It's probably going to be around a half a cup. I'm going to be stingy at first because I don't like too much mayonnaise. I like enough, but not too much. And nope, we're going to need some more. And because this mayonnaise you have made yourself with a less problematic oil, or with even a straight up healthy oil like butter, melted butter, you don't need to feel bad about eating this mayonnaise. There we go. Now you can see the little bits of vegetation in there and the flavorings and stuff, but you can also see that this is entirely about the chicken. My husband likes to dip pork rinds in here and eat it that way, just using the pork rinds as an edible spoon. Oh, my mouth is watering. This smells so good. And you know what? I really think it needs a little bit more mayo. Boink. I used to make tuna fish and chicken salad, and I used to feel guilty about the amount of mayonnaise that I liked. But you know what? I don't need to do that anymore. How freeing is that, right? I can eat as much mayonnaise on my chicken salad as I want to, and I don't have to worry about whether I'm doing myself a disservice. There we go. Yummy, yummy. Sometimes you might want to taste it at this point, and I'll show you another hint. How do you taste something without having to dirty an extra spoon? You get a little on your big serving spoon and you drop it in the palm of your hand without touching the spoon to your hand and pop it in. That way you can taste it without having to worry about whether you got your spoon dirty. I saw a meme that said made with love means I licked the spoon and kept using it. I just love that. Don't tell anybody, but that sounds like something I would do. I'm going to put a little bit more pickle juice in here just because I like it. That's about another tablespoon. And Now I'm going to put it in my storage dish. So it will be ready for dinner time or lunch time or even breakfast time. When it's warm outside and you want a nice light meal, there it is. This is beautiful. It is tangy, a little tiny bit sweet, creamy with the mayonnaise. This is a clean spoon. And the onions and the parsley and the capers give it a wonderful herbal sort of a undertone, which really accents the chicken really well. And of course, you can adjust the seasoning, the caper juice, the pickle juice, the salt, pepper, whatever, any way you like it. You can put dill pickles in it. You can leave the parsley out. You can put other kinds of herbs in it. You could put pickled jalapenos and cilantro in here and just leave the capers out and the sweet pickles out and make a really lovely sort of Mexican-y sort of flavored thing. And so that's it. Lovely, easy chicken salad, almost no work. And as you can see, even with all my gabbing, it took 20 minutes to put together. That includes chopping up the chicken, and cooking the chicken is practically labor-free. So, love you all, precious friends. I hope you try this, and if you do, I hope you let me know how you like it. And I promise you I will be back soon with another recipe for the summertime. Peace, love, and meat. Bye-bye.